The 14th century seemed like an age of promise. Medieval Europe, though still steeped in shadows, saw trade flourish, cities expand, and new ideas cross borders. Merchants traveled the ancient Silk Road, bringing silk, spices, and precious metals, but also rumors of strange diseases coming from the east. Behind this appearance of progress, the continent was fragile. Villages and towns lived without sanitation, among narrow streets and open sewers. Rats ran freely between barns, ships, and markets. Invisible fleas clung to their fur, carrying a microscopic enemy no one yet knew, Yersinia pestis. The world was ready to be devoured by darkness, though no one was aware of it. In the heart of Asia, reports of sudden death already haunted peoples and caravans. Mongol warriors, traders, and nomads witnessed outbreaks of violent fevers and black swellings across the body. At first, few paid attention. But soon, the plague found its path westward. In 1346, in the port city of Kaffa, in Crimea, history took a sinister turn. Surrounded by Mongol armies, the Genoese inhabitants saw their enemies resort to a terrifying act. Infected corpses were hurled over the walls with catapults. Terror spread quickly. Many Genoese fled by ship, believing they were escaping death. But in the holds of those vessels traveled the rats, and with them, the plague. The following year, 1347, plague-infested ships arrived in Sicily. Sailors died at sea, and those who disembarked carried horrible signs on their bodies: high fevers, black tumors, bleeding. Within days, Messina was consumed. From Sicily, the plague spread to Genoa, Venice, and Pisa, and from there, to all of Europe. It was as if death itself had boarded every merchant ship, traveling faster than any army. Ports once full of life now echoed with screams of pain and the relentless tolling of funeral bells. The horror in the cities was indescribable. First came the fever, then the buboes, black, painful swellings that grew in the armpits, neck, and groin. When they burst, they released pus and blood. The victim's skin darkened in dreadful patches, as if rotting while still alive. Within 3 to 5 days, the body gave in. Many collapsed dead in the streets before even seeking help. Men and women whipped themselves in public, believing voluntary suffering would appease divine wrath. Others, consumed by hatred, sought scapegoats. Jews were persecuted, accused of poisoning wells and causing the disease. The plague revealed not only the fragility of the human body, but also the cruelty of the human soul. Meanwhile, the church found itself powerless. Sermons called for repentance, but neither priests, monks, nor bishops were spared. The streets of Florence, Paris, and London filled with corpses. Cemeteries could not keep up. Churches were turned into storage for bodies. Mass graves multiplied, and the air was poisoned by the stench of decomposition. Fear turned neighbors into enemies, and families into strangers. Parents abandoned children, husbands fled from sick wives. Brotherhood seemed to vanish, replaced by the instinct to survive. Processions of flagellants began to cross villages and towns. Spiritual authority, once absolute, faltered in the face of a death that ignored prayers and sacraments. The people, perplexed, began to doubt. If God did not hear, who could save them? It was in this setting that the sinister plague doctors appeared. Dressed in long leather coats, hats, and bird-like masks, they looked like figures out of nightmares. Inside the beak, they carried aromatic herbs and vinegars, believing the scents would ward off poisoned air. With their staffs, they kept distance from patients, examining them as if they were cursed beings. For many, the mere sight of these doctors was a sign of condemnation. Nothing worked. Bloodletting, herbal baths, prayers, flight. The plague advanced relentlessly. Trade stopped, ships lay anchored without crews, farms were abandoned, villages disappeared, social order unraveled. Some sought refuge in small communities, others plunged into hedonism, surrendering to pleasure, convinced the end was inevitable. And indeed, for millions, it was. When the wave finally subsided, what remained was a depopulated and scarred continent. Between 75 and 200 million deaths worldwide, and nearly half of Europe's population gone. Entire villages vanished from history. Families, lineages, traditions, all carried away in silence. But from the destruction came change. The lack of workers weakened feudalism and gave voice to peasants. Survivors demanded better living conditions. Local economies collapsed, but new forms of trade emerged. The very fabric of society was reorganized. In art and culture, the plague left visible scars. Churches began to depict the danse macabre, skeletons leading kings and servants, priests and peasants alike, reminding all that death makes no distinction. Faith was shaken, and the seeds of doubt planted in this period would later blossom into movements of religious reform. The psychological impact was even deeper. Generations grew up amid terror, marked by the idea that life could end within days. Many believed they had survived the end of the world, and, in a way, they were right. The medieval world had reached its twilight. From fear and pain, a transformed Europe would rise, which centuries later would be reborn with new values. But the memory of the plague never disappeared. In memories, legends and chronicles echoed the time when death walked among the living. A time when every toll of the bell reminded you that the next body to fall could be your own. The Black Death was not just an epidemic. It was an eternal warning of human fragility. And a dark whisper remains to this day. When death walked among us, we discovered that in the end, we are all the same.